Most scholars say that a lot of these characters in the Bible don't exist at all. This show is going to be very interesting because people like Moses, beasts like Leviathan, and other creatures and examples within the biblical narrative are found in other cultures, but maybe not literally exactly the way people would say they parallel. Check out this show. You guys might be interested and fascinated to find out how the biblical narrative is copies of the other ancient Near Eastern sources and how much similarities they may really have with one another.
We are Myth Vision. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Your host, Eric Lambert. I'm super excited about today's show, and I'm going to tell you why before we jump into our guest here. What I love about the guest is he has literally a plethora of deities, a variety through antiquity that he has seen pieces being reused throughout cultures, throughout millennia, reused, recycled deities that are being pushed into new cultures, new ideas as one conquers another. They're reusing gods. And sometimes you may not see where it's being used. He has this puzzle for an eye. He's you might as well call him the forensic files master when it comes to ancient myths and figuring out how to puzzle this stuff together. He's got a book that's coming out, Magical Jesus. So when that gets launched, I'll be sure to put it in the description of this video. So if you don't find it in the description of this video, go find Phil on Facebook. What's going on, Phil? Go ahead and introduce yourself and do me a favor, brother. Tell them about the book, and then we can jump right into the material that you're going to present today.
Okay, the Magic Jesus is unlikely to ever become one book. If it does come out, finally, it's going to come out as some number of books because it covers a lot of ground. Yeah. But basically, what I do is I'm using the ideas of Aleister Crowley. Okay, now
Aleister Crowley.
You've had recent guests, for instance. And Crowley had some of their ideas 100 years ago. And I'm not saying he had all of their ideas. I wouldn't know that. Or that he was the only one who had them. I wouldn't know that either. Okay, but none of the ideas I'm presenting originated with me. They essentially came from reading Crowley over years, many, many books, that sort of thing.
Wow. Okay, so Aleister Crowley is somebody to look into. But, Phil, you've done a good job coming to me. And sometimes I have no clue what you're talking about because, and it's not that I get what you're doing, the etymology, you're showing there's an overlap of theory, there's similarities between the stories, you're trying to connect the dots. You know for a fact these cultures are conquered. Israel's trying to find its identity in other cultures, other nations, and you do a really fine job of saying stuff like, okay, this is who Leviathan is in this story, and this is who David is, and this is who Adam is, and this is who Israel is, or Eve is, and you show this interesting way of looking at it, unlike any historical methodology I've ever heard.
Right. Okay. Well, one thing is I have Babel walking. And it's a method of inverting syllables in words, mixing syllables around and treating the consonantal sounds a little loosely. So a D could become a T or something like that. And so you realize that the only difference between Poseidon and Pontius is just in Babelwalkie, they're the same. Okay. So you realize that Lazarus is Israel.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so you see more when you're reading. You realize that a person isn't defined just by one thing. They're defined by some number of things. Oedipus, for instance, is Iapetus, and Iapetus is Josephus, and Iapetus is Hephaestus. The Greek god Hephaestus of the forge, and that's where you get into the blacksmith god. Okay, and this is where they connect into the Unopodai spider, because the Unopodai spider is known as a virgin birther. Okay, it reproduces exact copies of itself. How does it do that?
Okay. Stay right where you're at.
Okay.
Not only do they catch you in the image, but your audio is better where you're at right now than when you
Alright,
were too
fine.
close. For
Okay.
some reason, I don't know why, but you're like way
No, I
louder
was
now.
pointing down. So okay. Um, when you're looking at one person like Aeneas, you're actually looking at an Unapodai spider, but they don't tell you he's the Unapodai. Okay, just
And
like
what culture is that from, if you don't mind? Because I'm going to tell you,
Aeneas.
I'm a dummy.
Okay, Aeneas is the great Roman epic, which is the Aeneid, written by Virgil, which
Right.
is patterned on the Homeric epics of Iliad and Odyssey.
Okay.
Okay, and in fact, both of them, it directly steals over and over again from them. But it shows you how these things got carried on in epic myth, because Noah is Uanadapa, and Udapa is this Unapodai spider who is three people in one. This way you can never quite get him. He shows up as Oannes for the Babylonians. He shows up as John the Baptist for the Jews, you see. And he's this mysterious guy. He comes in from nowhere, and he came in from the desert like Enki did. But the guy, you can tell, because Noah, the guy who is always saved, is always the Enki's god. Enki Ea is the Babylonian god who functions as the blacksmith god. So when you get to the Jews at Ugarit, not Jews, but Phoenicians, excuse me, but they're the Jews' relatives. You see them in Ugarit about 1400 BC. You're in the Baal epic. You have Kotharwahasis. Okay, well, Noah used to be called Atrahasis. Okay, and then you'll see Cassius show up. You'll see Cassius show up to stab Caesar, right?
Yep.
Okay, well, Cassius is Cassis too. Okay, this is what I'm telling you. There's
Okay, you've been trying to tell me this for a long time, Phil. I love this stuff.
Enoch is a form of Noah. The Greeks have had Inachus for hundreds of years before the Bible writes about Enoch.
Right.
Okay, but scholars never put this together because that's different religions, so they couldn't be selling the same.
Come up a little.
But they are
There you
telling
go.
the same
I can
story.
hear you
This is
again.
what I'm trying to say. All the different religions are simply variating very old themes, and the
Right.
three themes come down to the three insects of the Greeks, which are the spider, the bee, and the ape, the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer. The blooms of spring is when you're going to see the hero killed, and his blood will sanctify the new year and provide the red fertility for the growth. This is going to be the baptism of fire.
Okay, Phil, let me digest this, because this is the thing I noticed. Okay, you have so much information that dummies like me can, and I don't mean I'm dumb, I mean I'm ignorant, and not in a way that's derogatory. I mean, I've just not read enough to know, right? So here's the thing. I want to break this down for maybe our audience who's like me. Okay, it seems that we're carrying a theme. This theme is like a theme of threes. There's numbers, there's words, there's real life nature or natural elements that are involved in the incorporation of epic myths. And what you're showing is that the Bible's no different. And the way the historians are treating it is they're treating it like this is some piece of literature that's accurately depicting historical, here's the real historical what happened, rather than, hey, look, guys, have you not read the Iliad and the epic myths of the ancient world and seen the parallels?
Right. Well, okay, let's go to McDonald.
You sound better when you're up here, by the way.
Okay,
Just so
McDonald is showing these parallels. Okay, and he's being poo-pooed by the biblical scholars. They don't want to even acknowledge the surface level mimesis.
right.
Okay.
That will destroy
Now,
everything they stand for.
What I'm saying is McDonald is correct. Mimesis is the general method, and the way they do it, they grab a few pieces from one hero character. They grab another few pieces from a god over here. They grab another few pieces from a different hero character, and they make a composite character.
Right.
Okay, of course you haven't seen this character, but he sure reminds you of other characters.
Hint, hint.
So
I love this.
This is what's going on again and again. So Dr. Price, of course he says, sure, Phil, you want to get your ideas listened to, publish for the SBL, right? Go write something for the SBL. Well, they don't even like McDonald's. They're going to hate me.
Oh my gosh, you are the enemy. You're the devil.
And McDonald's essentially one of them. I mean, he's the official guy in all of them. Well, see, Crowley didn't have to worry about any of that. And it turns out Crowley was really many decades ahead, even of your universities and things like that. He had the Baros and cosmogony in Genesis, many decades before they agreed that that was true, but Crowley knew it was true 100 years ago. See, that's the thing. Also, he knows that in the New Testament, what you're looking at is the Hesiotic cosmogony. In other words, the primordial gods that affect the structure of the works are Hesiod's versions of the Greek gods, and those came into existence with the universe, and they procreate to make new things. That's how the universe became so diverse. Was the gods procreated, and and the humans did, and they have their ancient myths where animals and humans are combined in birth and that sort of stuff as well. You had satyrs and you had werewolves even in Rome.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I love the lore. I love video games that have stuff like that in them.
Right.
It's just, I love that kind of stuff. So breaking this down, what you're saying is,
okay, I'm studying Romans now, and if you can't line up with Aeneas with Oannes, and you can't line up Oannes with Noah, okay, and then you're missing the greater picture. In other words, there's an inter-epic relevancy. There is a relevancy that extends beyond anybody's myth because they are using these natural models or what they see as natural models. The various cosmogonies have to do with the coming out of Tiamat and Behemoth, and those are the serpent and bull type myths that you get. But you notice your two orders of angels are seraphim and cherubim.
Yes.
And those are serpents and bulls.
Okay, yes. Now back to the serpent thing I mentioned prior to us recording. Do you have something to comment on? And I want to throw something out there for you and maybe our audience. And this is just very basic. Something just for our audience sake that I found out about Phil is there are certain things that just never really added up to me. I've heard the historical position and what they say, and to me it's like, why would that even be the case? Phil, what is the when Jesus says, if I be lifted up, all men will be drawn unto me, the idea of being lifted up in the wilderness, and Moses lifting up a serpent in the wilderness in his story, what's that have in common? And then what about those being in common and other epic myths? What does that mean? What's going on there?
The serpent and Jesus being lifted up in the wilderness, these are the healing things. This is spring equinox, and Jesus has just been dunked by John. He's been ritually killed and is reborn. He's been entered by a spirit that has come down from heaven and entered into him. And I say that is the Holy Spirit, and he is being tempted now by Satan because the spirit of puberty has entered his body, and he will have his first sexual experiences.
Oh.
In other words, he will be tempted by sex. That's what would have happened in the old myths.
So is that what happened to Eve with the snake in the garden?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yes, and in fact, what you're going to notice is that the Oedipus myth is central to the Bible, okay? Because this is the Oedipus myth. Essentially, he is wounded in the legs. That's what distinguishes him. The god Hephaestus is the one we really need to look at because he's the Iapetus that survived.
Does Osiris play any role with Isis using his shaft and his penis and everything?
Okay, yes. Yeah, that's going to come in with the bees.
Okay. The birds and the bees. Okay, it makes sense.
Isis makes the shaft. Okay, Isis makes the phallos.
Right.
And Jesus on the cross is a phallic image. Okay, they don't like that. But if you read Burkert, Burkert gets quoted at the beginning of everybody's Greek mythology course, and he gets quoted in other mythology courses and much beyond that. Okay, he left the academy over this precise issue. They simply will not acknowledge the phallic image that's in it.
Wow.
And basically what you've got is you've got the womb image versus the phallic image. You have the fish and the cross. You have Jonah being spit out of a fish as a birth image. And the fish, by the way, is Nina. Her name is Nina because he's on his way to Nineveh, and it was named for the fish goddess, Nina.
Phil, what can I do? Okay, first of all, my mind, I love this stuff. Phil, I mean this when I say this. I'm saying it on air. I've liked your post and briefly read them and did not have time to even interact. First of all, what can I contribute? I mean, I honestly can only stand in awe of this information because I really enjoy this stuff. I don't know enough to contribute. I know enough to give you a thumbs up and maybe a pat on the back and say, hey, let's get another show going. So I encourage anyone who's watching this to reach out to you with questions and ideas. And if you are a host of a show and you're watching my show, get Phil on your show. Let's get this information out there.
Right.
So
do this for me if you would, please, Derek. Make sure you put my web address on.
I will.
On this, okay? Because that was neglected last time. No,
I can go back and put I can even update that one too.
Would you please? Because
absolutely.
I literally didn't gain a viewer.
Okay. That was a big mistake on my part, and I'm a big proponent of trying to push our guests and get them out there. So Phil, tell me something else interesting that's controversial that you can think of. It doesn't matter where you take us because honestly, I know you're going to take us somewhere crazy.
Well, look, no, don't underestimate Oedipus. He is in the insects of John. You wonder why John only eats locusts and drinks honey. Okay, it's because that the creator bee versus the destroyer locust. Okay, that's Venus and Mars. That's Aries. That's Aphrodite and Aries. Okay, and the bee is hypersocial.
Hold on, you're too much noise in the background. So
okay,
real quick,
sorry about that. No, I'm in a crowded pub.
You're good. No, we can hear you when your face is in the screen. When you get down.
All right, sorry.
You're not.
Okay.
So
sorry
what is the
that.
bee? Real quick, before you go any further, because this is important. We see locusts in the Old Testament. We see locusts being eaten by John. We see Revelation saying locusts will come for anyone who changes. Right. Okay. The bee, the locust, and what's the third bug? And then, by the way, where are those three?
Okay, there's not a third bug. John's the third bug.
Okay.
John's the anomaly. Okay.
Okay, and so my question is, where did that come from? Where's the creator bee and the locust? What myth is that from?
Okay, wait a second. Let me finish describing the locust. The locust is a hermit. Okay, the locust is the guy who comes in from the wilderness, like John. He's a hermit. He doesn't around. He doesn't belong to anybody. Okay, and yet he's the wise man. He was Enkidu in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Comes in and he has the Hieroskamos. He engages in the rites of spring with Shamhat, who is from the Temple of Ishtar.
Is he the same? Is he the guy that comes in the story of Job, the fourth man who comes in the story of Job out of nowhere when Yahweh's asking Job's friends, or I can't remember, maybe Job's three friends were talking and then a fourth man comes out of nowhere. Remember? He kind of
I don't recall. I'm sorry.
Okay, something to maybe look into.
So
this is interesting, though. That,
no, and in fact, I connect Job to the roots of Jebus, and which was Jerusalem. Okay. Let me tell you more about Oedipus. Okay,
please.
Why do you think Jesus is dying in Jerusalem?
Why?
He's giving it his hero power. The same reason Oedipus was allowed to die in Colonna is the reason Jesus is dying in Nazareth. And there's always a tyrannus in charge.
Oh, you mean Jerusalem?
Okay, listen, there's always a tyrannus in charge. Okay, you've been telling the tyrant myth since the most ancient myths. The tyrants have become the Tarquins of the Caesar in the meantime. Okay, and so the tyrannus is is Oedipus, and it is Jesus because he is from Nazareth, and Nazareth is Tyrannos when you change the syllables around.
I can't hear you.
You talk about the Dioscuri, the
Yep.
Tyndarii, these are the
Yes.
sons of thunder, which are Castor and Pollux.
Yes.
Okay, the Tyndarii are the Tyrantii. They are the tyrants. You see, you
Okay.
keep seeing the tyrant myth over and over and over. You don't get the name. When Aeneas kills Turnus, he's killing a Tyrannus. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Okay, you need to recognize that.
See, and the problem is I couldn't recognize it because I've
And so
never
when you've
read
got
that.
the Tarquins, who's the founding kings of Rome, each one is the epitome of the tyrant. Okay, the guy who just it's his way or the highway.
Right.
And so you have a little bit of changing of the language, but they show up over and over. They're the same character. If you read another myth, and Oannes becomes Onus, and the Tyrannus becomes Turnus, or it becomes the Tyndarii, and they're the sons of thunder. And McDonald gets a lot about these guys, but he doesn't get that the Tyrannus myth has been going on since Babylon, and it's still going on. He's the guy who came in, he had all the answers, you put him in charge, and now he can't see the forest for the trees. Oedipus can't see that he's marrying his mom and that he killed his dad because he believes he did not.
Huh. Okay.
His belief has blinded him. And so this is why Caesar ends up doing, and Jesus do the same miracle. They are restoring walking, which is Oedipus's problem. He's lame. And they're restoring sight, which is Oedipus's problem. He's blind.
Interesting.
And Jesus is there to reverse, to invert the other mythologies that he's surrounded by.
And that makes sense.
You follow me? He's inverting the philosophy. This is what the Jews have always done.
Luther Williams, Dr. Luther. You hear that? Anyways, Phil, keep going, brother.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was on a roll.
No, you really are. I'm following you. I just had to tell Luther to inverted. So please do.
Well, yeah. The Hebrews often do just take whatever the Mesopotamians are doing, turn it around. And so the Meshushu was the serpent back in the Babylonian myth, the Mesopotamian myth, and he became Mount Mashu, just like Typhon gets slain by Zeus, but he becomes Mount Zaphon. Okay, and so what the myth we have that shows us what they're talking about is Hephaestus. He is guarding Typhon under Mount Etna, and he has his volcano forge, but Typhon the dragon is kept at bay by the blacksmith god, but the blacksmith god is just the creator god. It's Enki's myth that Yahweh inherited as the creator god to create Adam. And he created Adam as being bigendered from the earth. Adam is an Anapodite spider.
Interesting. So let me ask you about Adam here for a second, okay? I want your thoughts because I know you're going to think way outside the box.
He's Purusha for if you're in the Hindu religion. You're going to find out that this Anapodite is Poseidon as well. And Poseidon is a triple god, probably based on the Hindu god Maitreya.
Okay, Phil. So Phil, I have guys who argue left and right, and I want you to kind of deal with the way I'm kind of approach this. Is say what you think's wrong about this approach, okay? Adam is a narrative of an actual supposed historical figure, right? Some people say. Here's the problem. There are others who say Adam actually is a myth, but he is a representative of the nation of Israel, and that he is Israel, not an actual single guy, but a collective group of people called Israel. Now, do you think those two methodologies are missing the point you're trying to come at? Or is one of those methodologies true and what you're saying is true?
Well, here's what happens. They vary the myths. The myth is usually centered on a Heracles type character. In other words, Gilgamesh was the first Heracles, but we're putting it backwards by calling him Heracles. Heracles is actually Gilgamesh. is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay, so when you have these various gods of the city, they tended to be Herculean characters. They could be part mortal, or they could be all god. They could be like Marduk, who was made by Enki, and so was, made divine. But or you could be Melkart, and that Melkart actually may be older than Hercules or Heracles. And what I'm saying is, Peter Meinik, the professor Peter Meinik, New York University, who teaches the course I'm studying now on the Romans, says that he could have come from that.
Interesting. I like this. I like this because, I never understood them wanting to kick him out of the garden because if he keeps eating of the tree of life, he'll live forever.
Okay, here's the thing. Adam and Eve could have stayed in the garden forever. They would have been innocent little children with no knowledge of anything. And they would have never known the difference between good and evil. And so, they could have been the god of two little babies that never did anything except sat there and said, "Goo goo, I'm going to eat this. Let me water this tree."
Is there another myth that?
Okay, but instead they escaped that thanks to the serpent. The serpent allowed them to become teenagers, do what they weren't supposed to do, and learn to be adults. They achieved adulthood by leaving the innocence of Eve.
Interesting.
Eden is childhood. Yes. It is archetypal childhood. That's what it represents. On one level. That doesn't mean it doesn't represent other things. It can.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
You're saying there's multiple layers to this.
You've got Yahweh's a serpent. You've got 4 people, and you've got 4 rivers in Eden. And what you're going to find that these rivers tie into the giant dragon monsters, and even the valley that is Gehenna, and that's Hephaestus's forge. That's the forge of the blacksmith god.
It's funny you say that because Gehenna is where hell's going to be thrown.
Okay, right? Now check it out. The only reason you got a hell is because Virgil gave it to you in the Aeneid. Okay, there was no punishing hell until Virgil made it so plain and so punishing that it got incorporated into Christian theology from the very earliest points.
Right.
Okay, because neither the Jews nor the Greeks had a punishing hell. It was only for the odd person. It was only for the very bizarre, extreme sinner like Hitler or something like that. Those were the only people that went to hell.
Okay. Let me ask you a question about Nero. Something popped up in my head. Nero killed his own mother, as the story goes.
Right.
Do you think this is historical, or do you think this ties into the whole, like, the guy, some other myth or something? I mean, at what point do you draw and say, hey, I think there's actual history here, and this is myth? How do you do that with the New Testament? And I know I'm rabbit trailing, but
specific characters again. Your question you're asking me about.
I was asking about Nero.
Nero, yeah.
What do you think about him?
Killing the mom? Well, you've often got you have so many deaths going on in these myths. We're going to see Peter drawn from the Phaedra myth, and these type of myths. These myths are the Pandora Padrosa type myths, and so you've always got 3 girls together in the myth, and they tend to kill themselves. They drop like flies. But why do they do that? Because they're lunar phases. Okay, or when John dies, he's like the wet half of the year dying, and Jesus is the fiery half of the year being reborn at spring equinox. Okay. And So yeah, they are astrotheological deaths, but they don't explain that to you.
See, that's what maybe I need to get a comment from you. A lot of people knock Acharya S's work and say she's pseudo scholar. She didn't know what she was talking about. How do you deal with that since it's astrotheological?
I don't know her work, okay, but I suspect that she is seeing many patterns which are really quite valid, and she's matching them up,
right?
Like everybody else. What she didn't have were the cheats. I had read Crowley for years. I mean, I had spent years reading 30 books either by or about Crowley.
Right.
Okay, so that gave me all kinds of little cheats In other words, I know things, but I don't know why I know them. I don't know the details around them. I don't even know what Crowley thought about them, only that he mentioned them. Okay, so, but
Okay.
what you find in is that Iapetus is going to be Joseph, Josephus, Japheth kills his daughter, just like Iphigenia gets killed in the Odyssey, or in the Iliad, excuse me. Just like Iphigenia is killed, Japheth kills his daughter. And who's he do it for? He does it for Yahweh.
Huh.
You know, and it's because this is Iapetus. So Josephus is
Right.
showing up with the name Iapetus on him.
Okay. So
Okay, because
Josephus
he's
is
part of the Unapodon.
you don't I mean, what do you think about him being a historical
Josephus
person?
is at least one real guy.
Okay.
Okay, but he's wearing a mask.
That's a title. That's a
Pretending
title.
to be a Jew. He's a Jew. He's a Christian. He's the best Christian the Jews never had. That's who Josephus is.
Wow.
He's probably writing later, or let's put it this way: he gets incorporated later into the Christian.
Okay. And that's why they had this what appear do you think that's an interpolation? Do you think the Testimonium Flavinium is an interpolation?
It's probably is interpolated. But what I'm saying is Josephus is trying to give the Jews a history they never had.
Okay.
Okay, he's defining the Jewish people in a way they hadn't been defined previously. And I mean, from what we can tell, the Jews are all Christians and Stoics if you go by Iapetus and Philo. But the reason you're doing that is the spear mystery in any way, because Philo is part of the spear mystery, and so is Iapetus. Iapetus means the piercer. You're going to find out. So this is the Unapodized spider is a piercer. The serpent in the garden is a piercer. The spear, which represents Roman rule, is a piercer, the iron spear. Okay,
Wow.
and this is Pilate. Pilate is named for that iron spear. The Pilatus is the standard issue Roman spear in the army.
Okay.
Okay, so you need to know he is that.
No. This is why I need you, Phil. This is why I need you. I need you on the show more. I'd love to have you come more. You have a YouTube channel. Are you still putting videos on the YouTube channel, or you've given it a little bit of a break?
I have a Mushushu Messiah video on there. People can look at it. It's very short. It's like a couple minutes long. And it's going to show you the progression up to Josephus, son of the Messiah. Josephus ben Matthias.
Okay.
Matthias is Messiah.
Right. Matthias is Messiah?
Yes.
So
it's the pun. That's the pun, sir.
Right. I was going to ask you about Jesus ben Ananias.
Okay. Again, Aeneas, Oani, Ananias.
Okay. So, okay, you're taking etymology, these words.
Yeah.
And what is that method you're using called?
It's metonymical method. I call it Babel walking. Because what Crowley knew how to do was to shift the syllables around and not be too picky about the consonants. And you suddenly start reading everybody's religion and everybody else's religion. It's fascinating. I go through Greek myth. It doesn't matter if it's Greek, Phoenician. I can see what they're doing with the name.
So this method, and I want to talk about this method for a second here, because it's obviously something that's not, it may be practiced, but very conservatively in ways that people are like, hold on. Like even to this day, people fight Joseph Atwell, right? And at least Dr. Price, for example, will look at stuff like, let's see, Joseph of Arimathea, Joseph Bar Matthias. That may be Josephus being discussed here. But let's go a step further. Judas Iscariot, Sakari. That is an obvious babble you're talking about, right?
Right. The Sakari, and in fact, you can talk to Jacob Berman about this, but Crowley knew it before Berman did, that Ishtar formed a lot of the sources. He was Isaac and Issachar and Icarus for the Greeks. Okay, the son of Daedalus, who is the blacksmith god again. Daedalus was the Hephaestus of that period. Yeah.
You and Berman obviously are well read, and he knows a little bit about what you're talking about. You do a totally different, you take a totally different angle, and you drive home on this stuff a little more. He's been centered around the historical, who may be this figure in the 30s, that lately he's been on that. So what I'd like to do, I don't know if this is something you'd be interested in, because you both really understand these texts, is just to have a round table and talk about different deities and how they map out, and you guys could have a fun time doing it. I don't know if
That sounds great. That sounds great.
I know that he's actually recognized you. Jacob Berman said that you were like the best when it came to trying to connect these things the way you do it. No one else is doing it.
No,
yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay,
oh yeah, he thinks you're awesome.
He neglected to thank me for putting him on the webcast, and I thought he was thinking I stole his ideas or something.
No.
Okay.
No,
good.
Jacob's a good guy, man. Jacob actually does appreciate everything he can. He's a very humble guy too. So
excellent. Then glad to hear
may not
that.
have reached out because he's kind of a hermit, man.
Okay.
I'm trying to get him out of his shell.
It's just that way. Trust me. No, I'll tell you what. The only reason I'm here was because I didn't want Crowley's work getting lost again. Crowley knew all this stuff 100 years ago.
Right.
Okay, and the biblical scholars literally looked the other way. I mean, just looked at every place but the one place they could have found it.
Why do you think that is?
It depends on reputation. It's how we live. And this has to do with identity and what Odysseus is, Odysseus, but what also Oedipus is about is identity. Your identity doesn't come from yourself. It comes from people.
Right.
Okay, and they make tyrants, and they put them up in the chief seats, and the people who should be listened to don't get listened to because the tyrants are talking.
Okay. So, Phil, take us on one more fun adventure into some interesting thing most people would overlook and have never looked at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mushushu became Mount Mashu. He became Moshe in Ugarit. Well, that's what they called him in the Bible, but they called him that in Ugarit over 1,000 years before that. Okay, so he was Moshe, and he was born of Baal, who was mating with a heifer in the field of Deber. Okay, so he was then the Messiah of that period, more or less. You got Moshe, then you had Moses, then you had Messiah. Okay, then you had Josephus ben Messiah.
Right.
And you have your Messiah. You have Cyrus. Meshushu has a second name, which is almost Osiris. It's Shirusu or something like this. But that's going to be Cyrus, Caesar, and Kuros. And Kyrus, which is spear. Kuros is young man who is Apollo. Apollo is the Kuros of the god. Okay. So this is the stuff I'm talking about.
Okay, you definitely came out of nowhere with this stuff. This is awesome. What I mean is like, I didn't anticipate being able to grasp some of the things you're saying today, and this is why I have neglected to respond because I haven't been able to really contribute.
Okay.
But I do honor what you're doing here, and I do enjoy
thanks a
this.
lot. Look, when you guys find time to do what you're aiming to do, go ahead and do it, and I'll be on board with it.
I'll talk to Jacob
I just
then.
want to be in the conversation because there's a lot of stuff. I can show you the tyrants. I can show you a dozen of them.
We need to go through. So if you can put together a list of or something that you would like to present, right? And we can actually do a show because it's easy in all the myths, the epic myths, the world that we have, we can get lost. You know what I mean? And just rabbit trailing. So if you would like to take us into creation, let's do creation, or let's talk about damnation, destruction, rebirth, whatever kind of ideas you have. and we'll
Right.
specifically focus on that for an episode and drive home the Babel concepts between epic myths pertaining to either creation or rebirth, or, you know what I mean? And talk about these things and how my goal would be in all of this discussion, try and put this in your head, how you'd like to do it. Somehow, whatever the topic is, lead it from other myths to the Bible. Because the whole goal of my channel, yeah, there's the historical Jesus question, but I like to somehow get back to the biblical narrative. And if you show that kind of stuff, I'm sure my audience will love watching and hearing how you're connecting all these myths and predating the Old Testament concepts, way older than the biblical narrative, and bring it right to the Bible. That stuff's beautiful to me.
Okay. Thanks a ton.
Thank you, Phil Robinson. And look, everybody, make sure that you guys go to his YouTube. It's going to be in the description, and subscribe to his channel and find him on Facebook. You can ask him anything. He actually is the head guy of multiple Facebook groups. He writes this stuff often. He's not got enough people coming out of the woodworks who are aware of this material to actually correspond with him or discuss these issues. He needs a friend in this area. So I have no knowledge to be able to contribute other than a thumbs up and a pat on the back and bring him on the show. So make sure you guys go do that. And if you like what we do here at Myth Vision Podcast, go in the description, show us some love. Thank you, Phil Robinson. You have a good day, brother.